All right, so here's what you're going to need for drafting our basic front and back bodice. You're going to need your textbook. Pages 40 to 43 is where our drafting actually is. You are going to need your L square ruler that is 24 inches long by 14. You're going to need your clear gridded ruler, your French curve, preferably a clear one, and pencil and eraser. So for this drafting, you definitely want to be using a pencil and eraser. If you have a mechanical pencil, that's awesome. If you have just a regular pencil, you need to also have a sharpener and keep it sharpened throughout the whole time drafting. I am going to be using a Sharpie because it's easier for you to see on the camera, but do not use a Sharpie, use a pencil, okay? Okay, so for each bullet point here on our draft, there is going to be a description and then a parentheses with a number in it. That number is referring to a certain measurement on the standard measurement chart on page 36. So you go to page 36 and you'll look for that measurement under size 10. You'll go back, add whatever ease they're asking you to, and then fill the final measurement in on the blank. Do that for all of the blanks from page 40 to 43, and then you'll be ready to start. Okay, so I want you to start by getting some soft pattern paper. You're going to cut a strip of it that is about 28 inches long, okay? And our paper comes in 36-inch widths. And so you are going to trim it in half. So you have two pieces of paper that are about 18 by 28. One will be for our front draft and one will be for our back draft. So you can put the second one away. We're going to start with our front draft now, okay? And we're following along in the book. Again, you can utilize this drafting method for any size. The measurements that I state in this video are going to be for size 10, standard size 10. All right, so we are going to start by getting our full front center length drafted on our paper. So page 40, A to B, we're going to do a full length plus ease, which is going to be 17 3/4. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your L square ruler, draw a nice long line on the paper closest to you. On the right-hand side, sort of about 6 inches down from the top, I want you to give yourself a little cross mark. And then we're going to label this A. Then we're going to measure 17 3/4 down our line to the left. And we're going to label that B. Now, when you do all of these measurements, I want you to get your head like down over your paper, okay? So during this video, you're going to get to see the back of my head, my big, beautiful head, a lot. And anytime you see that, I want that to trigger you that you need to get up on top of your ruler and like make sure you're getting accurate measurements, okay? So again, mark A. We're going to measure to the left along our line 17 3/4 inches. And we're going to label it B. Now we are going to square a line out from A, 7 5/8 inches. So I am going to square using my L square. I know that this is really squared as long as I align one edge with a previous line I have. So here's how you're going to do it. You're really going to get your head up on top of it. You want to align one edge of your ruler with the line, the AB line you already created, and the corner of it in alignment with A. And then once you got it, you're going to hold your ruler and square a line out from A. Then we're going to take and measure along that line 7 5/8 inches. Give ourselves a mark and label that C. So what this measurement is, A to B is going to be our kind of front length measurement from kind of our high shoulder point down to our waist. Now A to C is going to be from our center out to our shoulder point, okay? Now I want you to square a line down from C about 3 inches. Again, anytime I have to square a line, I try to use my L square ruler. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 inches, just about. Now we are going to establish our center front length. So that is going to be from our waistline up to kind of like the front of our neck. This is going to be 14 7/8. So I want you to zero your ruler out down here at B and measure up along this line 14 7/8. Give yourself a little tick mark and label this D. Now we are going to we're going to square a line out from D about 4 inches. Usually you want to use your L square for squaring lines out, but I'm also going to show you how to do it with this clear gridded ruler. What you want to do is you want to pick one of the smaller lines on your ruler, line it up with this line you established here, and line the edge of your ruler up with that mark at D. Now make sure, get your head over top and make sure you're really squared up with that little line on your ruler. Then square your line out. You can check that you're really square by measuring the distance between these 2 points here and then moving it out and measuring the distance between these 2 points here. They should be the same, okay? Now, this line that D that we've established is kind of establishing the front of our neck here down to our waist, okay? Next, we are going to establish sort of the bust arc. That is the widest point from our center front line out to the widest point on the side of our body, okay? So down here along B, we're going to square a line out 10 1/4 inches, okay? I'm going to use my L square again. Really make sure I have it lined up with this center front. Just get my line squared out and then I can measure along it 10 1/4 inches and give myself a tick mark. I'm going to label this E. And then we're going to square up from E about 11 inches. It doesn't have to be exact, just about 11 inches. All right, so we have created the framework for our front bodice draft. I want you to take a little time to kind of orient yourself by labeling a few things. So this first line that we created, this A to B line, this is our center front line of our bodice. So I just want you to write center front. Over here on the right side of our paper, this is our shoulder area, and down here on the bottom of our paper, on the left side of our paper is our waist. Okay. And over here, furthest from us on our paper is going to be our side seam. Okay. So hopefully this kind of helps you get oriented. I want you to go back. I want you to pause the video right now. I want you to go back and make sure all of your measurements are correct. We're going to do this quite a few times throughout our drafting just to make sure that we aren't messing up and going further with incorrect measurements, okay?
Now that we've got our
so everyone
done
stop and you've gone back and checked that all of your measurements are completely accurate. We're going to move on to kind of figure two, the figure two section of our drafting. This is going to kind of develop from our waist up to our shoulder, and we're getting kind of our shoulder area and neckline area developed, okay? So we are going to zero our ruler out down here on the left side of our paper at this corner. We're going to zero our ruler out here at B, and we are going to measure up 17 7/8. Now the way that you want to do this is zero your ruler here at B and kind of pivot, kind of get a pivot point going there at 0. And you want to pivot your ruler over until 17 7/8 inches hits somewhere along this C line. It does not matter where it hits. You just want to make sure you're really zeroed out at the corner here and pivot until 17 7/8 touches that line squared down from C. Go back and make sure you're still zeroed out. Make sure you're still at 17 7/8. And then grab your pencil. And draw in your line, and also give yourself a tick mark here where those exactly where those two intersect, okay? Sometimes I love giving myself little tick marks right at intersections because sometimes it can be difficult to see like exactly where those lines intersect. Okay, so again, this measurement that we just did is kind of coming here from center front waist, and we're measuring up diagonally to the shoulder tip of our body. Now, next, I want you to zero your, we're going to label this G up here. Don't forget that. G for Gomez. One way to sort of decipher what's happening in the drafting of our book is to see like the letters. It tells you to measure from B up to G. So we zero our ruler out at B and measure up to G. The next one is telling us G to H. So we're going to zero our ruler out at G and measure down to H. So that's kind of one way that you can decipher the illustrations and the drafting in this book. So again, zero your ruler out at G and measure down along that line 9.5 inches. Give yourself a cross mark and label it H. What this is measuring is it's measuring from our shoulder tip down to kind of like our bust apex. We're getting that measurement going. Now we are going to measure from G up to I. What's happening here is we are creating the shoulder line of our front bodice. So we're going to zero our ruler out at G, and again, we're going to create that pivot point at G, and we're going to pivot our ruler until 5.25 touches somewhere along this A to C line, okay? And I'm going to get my head down over the top of my ruler so I can really make sure that I'm zeroed out here and that I pivot and exactly 5.25 hits somewhere along that line. And again, give yourself a tick mark so you know exactly where those two lines intersect, okay? We are going to label this I. Another thing I want to make note of in our drafting, let me zoom in here real quick, is anytime you see these little L's at intersections on the illustrations, that means that is squared off right there. That part of your draft needs to be squared off. So this next line that we're creating, we're going to go from I down and touch the line we squared out from D. So this corner right here at I needs to be squared, okay? So you can use your L square for that. Okay, so at I, I'm going to get my L square. I'm going to line up one edge of it with this G to I shoulder line. Really make sure you're lined up. Then I'm going to square a line down from I and so it touches D. See that? We want this definitely squared. A few other key places that we wanted to have squared is right here at A, definitely right here at D, down here at B. Okay, so you got your line squared down. This is our shoulder, and this is kind of going to become our neckline area here. Next, what we're going to develop is our bust span. So kind of from center front over to our bust apex. So get one edge of your ruler in alignment with center front, and then scooch it until the edge of it is in alignment with H. You're actually going to go past H a little ways. Just square a line out past H a little ways. Okay, now I want to label this J here for Jordan, of course. And then we're going to measure out from J along that line 4 1/8. This is going to go slightly past H. That's what we want. Give yourself a little tick mark here and label it K. So you have G here, you have H here. K is a little bit further out from center front than H is. That's what we're looking for. We're going to come up here, the bottom of our neckline, and measure down to the left. And what we want is we're measuring halfway from D to J. Really easy way to get halfway mark is I like to take a piece of paper. I know this is a straight edge, so I'm going to line up one edge of it with J and put a mark here at D. Okay, so I lined one edge of it up with J, put a mark here at D, and then I just fold it in half. You're welcome to do the math associated with all of this, but whenever I have halves or fourths, sometimes it's just easiest to do this. So then I fold my corner over to that mark, and I get a crease here that will be exactly in the middle. I line it back up again and give myself a cross mark right at that crease on my paper. And then I have measured halfway from D to J. We are going to label this L. Now we are going to take and square a line out from L all the way across our chest, 7 inches. Now this is really giving us our measurement from center front over to kind of like the front of the leading edge of our armhole, okay? So I'm going to use my L square ruler, line one edge of it up with center front, make sure the other is in alignment with L, and then I'm going to measure way on out there. Now I'm going to get my clear gridded ruler and measure 7 inches out along that line. And square up and down on L, 7 inches out, and I'm going to square a line up and down from that. This will be labeled M. I'll go and kind of extend that line just a little bit, maybe just a couple inches. There we go. All right, so now we're going to come down here to our waist. This is on the left side of our paper, down here near B. We're going to measure out from B 3 1/4 inches. And label this F. Now, on this F line, I want you to measure to the left 3/16 of an inch. Now, the little tiny squares all along your ruler are 1/8 of an inch. If you go to the very edge of your ruler, you see those even smaller tick marks in between. Those are 16ths. So you're measuring 3 of those little tick marks along the edge, which is not very much at all. So this is actually what F is, okay? 3/16 down from our waistline. All right, we've finished our kind of next section of our drafting. I want you to pause the video, go back, and make sure you have all your measurements accurate. We measured, now that you've checked that those measurements are all accurate, we are going to continue on to page 41. We're kind of on figure 3 of our drafting. This is developing sort of more of our waistline and our side seam. So let's do this. All right. I to N. This is going to be developing the area. This is up here, eye at our high shoulder point. High shoulder point is where your shoulder meets your neckline. So high shoulder point, and we're going to be kind of measuring down kind of along the body like this to our side waist, okay? So eye to N, that means we are going to zero our ruler out at eye. We're going to be creating another pivot point, and we are going to pivot until our ruler at 17 7/8 touches somewhere along this guideline up from E, okay? Zero it out right at this intersection, pivot it over until 17 7/8 hits somewhere along that line. Give yourself a little cross mark. Whoa. Draw all the way up. Okay. You're going to label this N. Now, from N, we are going to measure right to the right along this line, 8 3/8 of an inch. So zero your ruler out at N, measure up 8 3/8. Give yourself a little tick mark, label this O. This is a little bit goofy. We're going to go from N, and we are going to measure out, like away from us, 1 1/4 inches. So my clear gridded ruler is 2 inches wide. So I am just going to kind of line up 1 1/4 inches with my this guideline here. I'm going to measure out 1 1/4 inches away from me near N. And I'm going to give myself a bit of a guideline, kind of like that. Now we're going to do another little pivoty thing. So we're going to measure from O over to P. We want it to be the same side length measurement that we did from N to O, which was 8 3/8. So we're going to zero our ruler out at O and pivot over so 8 3/8 hits somewhere along this guideline we gave ourselves out here. So again, make sure I'm zeroed out here. Pivot so 8 3/8 hits here and draw a line. Be so precise. You will thank yourself later. And I'm going to give myself a tick mark exactly where those intersect. Okay. Label this P. Then we are going to connect a line from P to F. Remember, F is down below our waistline, 3/16 of an inch, so it's this little tick mark down here. So I'm going to connect that up to P. There we go. Now, if I were you, I can't do this because I'm using a Sharpie, but if I were you, I would go and erase this line right here. This is not our side seam. This one, O to P, this is going to be our side seam, okay? So if I were you, I would go and erase this line. That often confuses a lot of people. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is we're going to measure from P over to Q. Now, our draft asks us to get our waist arc and subtract some E's and subtract this measurement we have over here. And really what we're developing is we're taking the first part of our waistline. there's going to be a dart intake here, and we're developing the rest of our waistline, okay? So from P to Q, you want to measure along this line you made 4 1/8 inches. So you are going to get your ruler, zero it out at P, measure 4 1/8 inches, and give yourself a little tick mark. This is going to be labeled Q. All right, the next thing we're going to work on is developing the waist dart that we have, okay? We are going to draw a line from K to F. So K is this right here, F is down here. We're just going to connect the two. Really get up over and make sure you're being accurate here. This is our first dart leg. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to measure exactly that. I am getting about 7 7/8. Your measurement might differ from mine a little bit since I'm using Sharpie. Hopefully yours is a bit more accurate, but it should be in the realm of 7 7/8. You want to take your actual measurement of that dart leg and you want to pivot it over here and measure that same measurement, take that same measurement from K, go down through Q, past Q, until you get that measurement. And connect your line and give yourself a little cross mark. So so you see how like this F is down just a little bit below our waistline? We're kind of going to be doing that same thing over here at Q. So you measure from F up to K. Whatever that measurement is, you pivot it from K over and go through Q a little bit past Q. So you get the same measurement. We want our dart legs to be the exact same measurement, okay? So lightly in pencil, I forgot to tell you, you might need your hip stick for this. Lightly in pencil, I am going to connect B to F and Q to P. I want there to be slightly upward curving lines, just the very slightest curve. Now, what I want to make sure of is that I have at least like a 1/2 inch here at B that is squared out from my center front line, and I want it to be really squared. And the same thing here at P. I want this to be squared as well. And it can then later curve in an upward kind of fashion. Okay? So I'm going to do it in pencil since this is sort of like a preliminary waistline that we're developing. You should be fine since you're already doing it in pencil. So I've kind of developed my squared. I just want a little bit of my waistline down here to be squared off from center, and then I can get it going on the curve. So hopefully you can see that. It's definitely squared here, and then it kind of curves down to F. So the curve is kind of going slightly upward, if it makes sense. I want to do the same thing with P. I'm getting my straighter edge of my hip stick, and I'm going to kind of stick my pencil right here at Q where I want the ruler to hit, and I'm going to slide it until I'm happy, until a curve that kind of matches what I want it to do. So there. It kind of curves right here, but then it definitely squares off over here from your side seam. All right, so this is our preliminary waistline, and the reason I did it in pencil is because I'm later going to go fold my dart and really finalize that waistline. So just make sure any of your pencil marks there are kind of light. Okay, next you're gonna need your French curve. I want you to come down here at O, and I want you to square a line in from O, like kind of come towards you at O. I want it to be squared off of your side seam over here. So I'm going to line one of my tiny lines up on my ruler with my side seam over here. And I am just going to square a line in from O, just like half an inch or so. Doesn't need to be major. Then what you're going to do is you are going to grab your French curve, and I want you to kind of fidget around with it, kind of twist it and turn it and get it into place so that we're really looking here at G, this guideline at M, and O. You want to just kind of play around with your French curve until part of it is definitely touching at G. It's grazing somewhere along this M line, and then it's hitting somewhere along your squared edge down here at O. Just play around with it. It takes a little while to get it into position. I'm really happy with this, so I'm going to hold it down and I'm going to get my armhole drawn in. Okay, you definitely want to make sure this is squared here at O, and you graze somewhere along this M line. It does not have to be right here at this intersection, just somewhere along it, and then you hit up here at G. Okay? Then we are going to come over here and we're going to develop our neckline curve. I want you to measure 1/8 of an inch away from you. You're going to take this line that was squared down from I down to D. I want you to measure away from you 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to do this in pencil. Give yourself a little guideline that's 1/8 of an inch away. Now, when you do this, you're going to do the same thing where you kind of slide your French curve in here and play around with it a little bit. We definitely want our neck to be squared about 1/2 an inch down here at D. We want the edge of our French curve to kind of grace that 1/8 of an inch mark, and then we want it to hit up here at I. Once you're happy with it, hold your ruler down. Wait, I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Hold your ruler down. Draw your curve in one smooth stroke. All right? We have just developed the drafting for our front bodice. Way to go.